Welcome everybody. We're here live under the mat radio. We're here. Today's date is August the 15th, 2023. That's today's date. Time is 7:16 p.m. Eastern time. Time may be different depending on where you're watching, depending on where you're listening at, all over the United States, South America, North America, and all over the world as our fans are. And by the time you're watching this on YouTube or the other platforms, it will not be August 15th, but let you know the time now. We're here live. Another great Skype interview exclusive with a dear friend of ours, a dear friend of mine personally and professionally. We've had this great man, this great father, this great husband, this great pro wrestler legend. We've had him on the show years ago. We wanted to bring him back now here in the year 2023. He's been everywhere. This man has worked under Vince Sr., worked under Vince Jr., he's worked under Vern Gagne. He's worked under the notorious Herb Abrams. He's worked under also Vern Gagne. He's worked in New Japan. He's done work for everybody. You got Vince Jr., Vince Sr., Herb Abrams, Fitzbon Eric, Vern Gagne, all over the world. Part of one of the most legendary WWF tag teams, the Killer Bees, with masks, without masks. He is the owner and runner of the Cauliflower Alley. This man is a devout Christian. This man loves his family. This man is great. Always great at sending inspirational text messages from a personal note. This man probably still could beat you and knock you out at the age that he's in, and probably could run circles over the current wrestlers today. We're going to have coming on in about 1 minute the great Brian Blair from the Killer Bees, or you may know him growing up as B.Brian Blair. You had his action figure. You had the LJNs. We all had them. I had them too. The Brian Blair action figures back in the day. We'll bring them in momentarily. Under the Mats Radio. Follow us on YouTube. Under the Mats Radio. Follow us on Instagram. Under the Mats Radio. All one word. Of course, follow us on Twitter at TECH underscore UTMR. We'll be having a TikTok coming up very soon. And of course, email us at underthematsradio@gmail.com. Without any further ado, bringing in a personal friend of mine, known him for years upon years. We text, check on each other regularly, but we get to see each other now face to face via Skype. The man himself, the Killer B, runner of Cauliflower Alley Club, winner of multiple awards, has a book out called, definitely listen to this. It is called, and I'm pausing for a reason. I want you to just listen. If you know his background, you know his book, you should be able to know. He added in his tag team name, Truth Be Told, none other than the great B.Brian Blair. Welcome, brother.
Hey, Evan, I've been around the world. I've been from Maine to Spain, deep down in the Ukraine. I've been from ocean to ocean, coast to coast. You know something, Evan? That's one of the best intros. And you are one of the people that I dig the most. This hive's going to come alive today. I am so excited to be with you, my friend, Evan. You are the epitome of a gentleman, and you are not only a kind soul, you're a wise man, and I just truly enjoy our communication, speaking with you. You're always keeping up on what's going on, and I just feel like you're a brother from another mother, and it's always a pleasure to be on Under the Mat with you, my friend Evan Prout.
Thank you. Appreciate it, brother. Good to have you back on here. It's been a few years, even though we talk regularly, to have you on here. This probably is the first time some of our newer fans have seen you on the show. They may not have heard you on when you was on some years ago. Um, let's mention very quickly, as you gave me accolades, I thank you much for that. Want to give you accolades to you being one of the great friends of mine, very few friends I could call in the business, one of the boys that we talk regularly. Um, and we talk besides this wrestling, his personal life. And I've had my ups and downs. You've been there sending, text messages, devotions, checking in. So I appreciate that. And you yourself has always been on the up and up. And you yourself, before we start off on your professional career, gives a testament to the man that you are, that you always stay upbeat, and you yourself has dealt with personal ups and downs yourself within the past year or so. You want to talk to us about that?
Well, I always like to catch the buzz and feel the sting, and I like to be happy, Evan, but we all have challenges. We're all going to have challenges. I was born in Gary, Indiana, and I was really the poor white boy. I didn't have any white friends. Billy Kempinski was the only white guy in my neighborhood. I mean, I was raised, but we didn't see color then. The whole world's going backwards. We were all just friends, brothers. Ricky Ferlano was an Italian guy that lived across the street, and he was more brown. And then we had a Rodriguez, but almost everybody. My best friend Willie Young, he was like a protector for me, and I moved to Florida when I was 11, but I just remember doing things when I was 7 that was absolutely crazy, things that no 15-year-old should be doing. And I grew up fast, but I grew up hard. And when my parents finally decided to come to Tampa, Florida, I was used to living in a 2-bedroom house with 5 kids, and my dad working 2 jobs, and it was difficult. It was very difficult. I got a job selling sodas at the Tampa Stadium, and I watched number 40, the fullback, Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, and I just really, him and the quarterback, my good friend, God bless him, Freddie Solomon. Paul and Freddie became great friends of mine after a while. So, I mean, they were like I don't like to use the term idols, but they were real heroes of mine. And so I wound up traveling the world with Paul. Freddie and I became just very, very close, doing a lot of charity work together later on. And, you never know who you're going to meet in life later. So you always want to treat everybody kindly with respect. And I've always done that. That's one thing my dad always taught me. He said, son, you use your manners and you respect everybody. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they are. Use your manners. And let me tell you something, you can learn something from a drunk guy on the street, from a janitor, I don't care, a carpenter, I don't care what he does. You can learn something from everybody. And so I always listened to my dad. I did a lot of listening, which is a good thing, because God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I'd much rather listen than speak. And I try to learn something every day. I have been through a lot of challenges, especially in the last 2 years. Prior to, a few years back, my wife got breast cancer, and it was a big deal. I thought I outgrew all those problems, and there's a lot of stuff in between that I've kind of just fast forwarded to modern day life. And our son was murdered. Our oldest son was murdered 2 years ago. And the very same night he was murdered, I got osteomyelitis in my spine, because I went in for, this was July 15th of 2021. I went in for back surgery, which was happening on July 16th, 2021. And they found my son buried in another county on July 22nd of 2021, the same day I got out of the hospital. And at the same time, I found out I had osteomyelitis, because I had this pain. And osteomyelitis is an infection of the spine, of the bones in the spine. And, Evan, there is no pain like osteomyelitis. I don't care. I've had kidney stones. I've had multiple cuts, contusions, bruises, operations. I've torn the quad muscle right off of my knee. Had bottles jabbed in my hand all the way through my hand, through this side of my hand, out the other side, torn thumbs, torn tendons. Nothing hurts like osteomyelitis. And, this was very, very difficult. It took my ability to walk away. I mean, I could not walk. I was paralyzed from my waist down. I couldn't use the bathroom. I couldn't use anything. I mean, I couldn't walk. I was just, they had to come pick me up in an ambulance, take me. I had emergency surgery on October 30th. And, I've been miserable, honestly, even though I've kept the game face on. because I love the fans so much and I always want to make them happy, and I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me because I know everybody out there has their challenges. But I've always believed that if you try to be happy and try to keep, take the high road, and even when people insult you a little bit, or the keyboard warriors get nasty on the internet or whatever, right? There's an old proverb in the Bible. It says, never answer a fool to his folly. So, I just, again, I take the high road, and I, no matter what's hurting me, I try to keep a smile on my face. And it's just my coaches. I love my coaches. They'd tell me to jump. I'd say how high. My teachers, I'd want extra homework. I just want to do everything I could to improve myself, because I didn't like being poor, and I didn't like being challenged so much in so many ways. I remember when I got busted with food stamps in the 5th grade here in Tampa, Florida, when I was at Egypt Lake Elementary School. And then I became the county commissioner of Hillsborough County, and the sheriff's department, we do their budget. And I remember Steve Epperson, who was one of the guys that wrote all the green spray paint on the front of the school, that made me, called me all kinds of names that I can't repeat on your podcast. But I ran home crying, and the principal of the school came and told me, because I never wanted to go back to school after that. He came back and told me that if anybody messed with me, they had to go through him. And we called him Ugg. He was big, he was hairy, and everybody was afraid of him. Nobody wanted to mess with Ugg. So I felt pretty confident that nobody was going to mess with me. And I went back to school, and lo and behold, everything worked out. And I persevered and overcame my challenges, and challenges are always going to come at us, but we just got to, we got to keep the faith and
Yes.
moving forward, keep our friends.
That's important. It is important. And what you're saying definitely is a great testimony and encouragement to those listening. No matter what you're going through, you can still keep the big smile. As you see, depending on how you look at my left, which is Brian's right, the big smile right there that he has and that he always has, no matter what's going on, keep that smile. Brian is your friend of mine. I've told you can use whatever language you want on our show, but I know you being a Christian, I know you definitely want to keep it, PG. But if you want to use something beyond it, it's okay. It's definitely okay.
Oh man, we're all sinners, and
Yeah.
God forgives us. We just love is the number one commandment. We've got to have love, and we've got to have faith. And as long as you've got love and faith, and you communicate with God, I do through Christ. I pray every day. I read the Bible every day, and I'm constantly, in touch with my inner self. Trying to figure out what God wants me to do, and it's a big a guide. It's like a big headlight for me. It guides my steps each day, and it tends to pay off. I mean, I feel good about, even though like I said, I've had 2 miserable years that nobody would want to go through. I've had 4 back surgeries. The last one was 2 days, and I've got more iron in me right now than a lot of bridges and more steel. And it's okay though. It's all okay. I mean, I'm alive. I'm happy. I've got some beautiful family, friends, faith. I've got all the things. I've got food. I've got a shelter over my head. So I'm good, brother. I'm happy.
That's good, brother. And the testament to how you are, not to make everything personal, but much as you and I have spoken, you texted me doing, you told me, privately about your spinal issue. And when I got worried about your son, I texted you a couple of days, hey brother, love you, praying for you, and other things you dealt with personally that you was going through. And myself always had upbeat words for each other. Me going through my stuff I was dealing with, you going through your stuff. There's positive, and seeing you in that smile, you wouldn't even have known. You mentioned about being a Christian, about the Bible growing up. There's a Sunday school song about the Bible, basic instructions before leaving Earth. The B.I.B.L.E. That's the book for me. Somebody listening to probably don't know what we're talking about, but that's how it was. Sunday school, you were a kid, and that's good that you do that. Always, and that's definitely shows a lot of strength. Of always showing a smile on your face regardless, and you having a great support your wife. And I talked to you before when you was a brother picking up wallpaper. You remember that? We was
Yes.
laughing, and hey, with my family and the support that you had, not only in your personal life or your blood family, but in the wrestling business. So having an extended family. And speaking of that, we'll touch on Hulk Hogan, the great Hulkster, brother, just had a birthday Friday, and we
Yes.
got to see that great smile that we see right now on Instagram or IG, as the youngsters call it. Your smile there, and talk about family and going through struggles. Noah Hawk has been through the back surgeries and the stuff he's been through up and down, and the stuff we've been through. As you mentioned about the extended family, blood, and family doesn't always have to be blood; it could be extended. As you and myself consider us family as brothers, as we talked a lot. You've encouraged me, I've encouraged you. Talk about Hulk Hogan, Terry's birthday, how that was important for him. Because you saw him crying and everything. How
Oh,
was that?
he asked me to help him blow out his candles, and he was still emotional. And it was amazing when he came into this beautiful room that his fiancee Sky and his son Nick had rented out for the party. Flair was there, but so many of his friends from the beginning. I mean, I'm one of Terry's oldest friends. We started in the sportatorium together. Matt Suda stretched us, and the only three people that made it during the 3 summers that I trained were Hogan and Orndorff and myself, and many, many, many people left without their clothes. I mean, it was brutal, but we've been friends ever since. We talk, at least every week. Text at least every other day, and he actually saved my life. I'll tell you a quick story. I was going to get operated on December 27th of last year, and I won't name the doctor's name, but I said, he called me, how you doing? I know you're getting an operation, and by the way, who's doing the surgery? I said, Dr. John Doe. So he said, what? He said, no way. He said, Brian, you can't let that guy operate on it. He said, that guy actually put a welding torch to my back. I said,
Oh
what?
man.
He said, he put a welding torch. I'm not kidding you. He said, he put a welding torch to my back. And he said, I was in pain for over a year with this guy, from what this guy did to me. Twice as much pain as before I went to see him. And he scared me so bad. And I tell you what, Evan, no, I went to 6 different doctors and asked them all, they all looked at my MRIs, my CTs, my X-rays, all the stuff, told me what tests I was going to get. And no doctor ever asked me to get a bone density test, knowing that I had osteomyelitis, that eats up your bones. So Dr. Alakani, whose name I will mention, from Tampa General Hospital here in Tampa. And I got to him through Terry, who is good friends with Dr. Uribe in Phoenix, Arizona. And Dr. Uribe is world famous. He owns Barrow Brain and Spine Clinic. He's co-owners there, and he's the head neurosurgeon for brain and spines. And after speaking with him, he said, well, honestly, Brian, he said, only 6 out of 10 back surgeries are successful. And most doctors won't tell you that. And he said, in your case, you probably have about a 30% chance of success, which he said, I hate to be, so blunt, but that's the honest truth. And he said, if I was you, I would either come to Phoenix and I'll do the surgery, or since you're in Tampa, if I was going to be, this is him talking to me, if I was going to have surgery on my back, I would have Dr. Alakani from Tampa General Hospital, who was a student of mine 11 years ago. He's the most brilliant student I ever had. He went out on his own about 10 years ago, and he is the head of the brain and spine surgery at Tampa General Hospital here in Tampa. So because Terry had me stop from going to the John Doe doctor, and I wound up taking Dr. Uribe's advice to see Dr. Alakani. One of the first tests he wanted me to get was a bone density test. So I said, wow, Dr. Alicante, nobody's ever asked me to get that before. What is that? He says, well, you've had osteomyelitis, and it measures whether or not we can do your surgery based on the strength of your bones. I said, okay. So I went and get the test, and I'm trying to think of the exact words, but you're out of surgical range. I was way out of surgical range. So I was really depressed when I heard that. I kind of got down, and I'm trying to keep that smile and stay positive. Something good's going to happen. And so because I got the test results and hadn't seen Dr. Alicante, and I see way out of surgical range. So Dr. Alicante tells me there's this drug called Forteo, and you have to inject it in your stomach every single day for 3 months, and we're going to take another reading. And since, when I went to University of Louisville, I really love nutrition and paid a lot of attention to nutrition classes. And so I got the best bone building supplement that I could find and took it with this Forteo. And 3 months later, when I took the test, I kept wondering, because I had gained 8 pounds and I didn't seem like I was getting any fatter, or couldn't be getting a lot more muscle because I can barely lift my arms. I'm hurting so bad. So the test comes back and I gained 48.6% bone density, and I was in the operation range and gained 8 pounds of bone.
That's so amazing.
The guy's brilliant. And another thing he did I thought was brilliant. He said, Brian, this is a 15, 16-hour surgery. He said, do you know anybody that can operate at full capacity for 15 or 16 hours? And I said, no, sir. And I said, absolutely not. And he said, well, also it's not good to be anesthetized for more than 8 hours. So I said, okay. He said, well, we have to divide your surgery up. We're going to do it on Tuesday, June 29th. Tuesday, June 26th of this year, and Thursday, June 29th of this year. So, Evan, talk about pain and fear, because you have to sign something. If you die, too bad, you can't sue the hospital, and they tell you, there's I don't think you're going to die, but there's always that chance. Of course, they check your heart, your kidneys, and all your vital functions. And I talked to his other doctors, his team, and he's a teaching doctor, so I agreed for him to have one of his students in the room, just like he was at one time. So hopefully, we can build these doctors that will perform great surgery instead of these doctors that just want to get by and next, who's next?
Exactly.
These guys that take pride in their work, and just like you do, just like I always have. And like most people do, we take pride in our work. And so Dr. Alicante was certainly a person that took pride in his work, and I can't say enough good things. I'm walking for the first time in 2 years without a cane or a walker. I can look up and see the ceiling or the sky, without bending my knees. I used to have to bend my knees to see the sky or the ceiling. And my wife was so mad. I broke 2 toilets. I broke 4 lamps. I broke all kinds of trinkets and things, that, I can't believe this is broke, but I'd lose my balance. I can't help it.
It's a process, though.
Just exactly, Evan. It was a process. And so, until I got the operation, it was just a process of breaking things. Then I got the operation, and the 6 weeks now, and I couldn't be any happier. I'll never be completely 100% out of pain. I'll never probably be able to bungee jump or zip line, do some of the crazy things I like to do. But as long as I can fish and, coach kids, I speak with kids and mentor people, I'm happy. I'll find some other things to pick up and do, and do a million podcasts, whatever I got to do. I'll come dance on your show, Evan, whatever. No, just I'm happy now. It's amazing the blessings that we take for granted. The ability to walk. That's the ability to use the restroom. I still have no feeling in my legs from the knees down, but I can walk fine, and my hips are a little numb, but all that's cool. I mean, I've dealt with injury all my life, and it doesn't. Nothing's affected my brain, and I can still function now. And pretty soon I'll be jogging, and it's all going to be good. I can actually do the elliptical now,
That's
so
good.
I'm training, and next week I'll be able to start swimming because they stapled me up from my butt to my neck, and so you have to wait 6 weeks. But I go to the doctor Thursday, so I'm sure he'll clear me to start swimming. And so swimming's great exercise, and eventually in like 4 months I'll start hitting the weights again, and it's all going to be good.
Now, everything that you gone through and the greatness you taking the medicine, the muscle supplement with the medicine, and you gained 48%, as you said, a muscle of
Oh,
bone strength.
bone
Could you
density.
take bone density? Could you deal with any more back bumps, falls in the ring, or do you ever want to get back to that point and take a bump here and there, or you're okay with that? You don't want to take any bad drops or suplexes or body slams.
No, I think my days in the ring are done. As a matter of fact, Evan, I had my retirement match in July 29th of 2019 at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. It was packed, and nobody knew that I was scheduled to get my first back surgery on August 2nd. So I'm in the ring, and my back hurt so bad I can't even explain how bad it hurt. But when I pulled that, when I went through that curtain and those people popped, I mean, I didn't feel anything. It was I could tell that my legs weren't working like they should work, but I was professional enough to do things that I could do that the people would still enjoy, and to get the match over. And I had a good opponent, James Jeffries, and we had a really good match. Just I wish the announcers would have known I was going to have back surgery in a week. It would have made it a little more interesting, but it is what it is. It's all good. And I probably shouldn't have wrestled that long. It's just, when you're wrestling, you're 59, it's just too long to wrestle.
Mm. And speaking of wrestling, your last match was the age of 59, and I have to ask you too. And it was one of the fan questions earlier today. Is Flair? Ric Flair had his last match. You have Sting that's 64 that's still going. Um, of course, Terry Funk, who just celebrated a birthday not long ago. He wrestled, long into his years. What are your thoughts of, Flair had his last match? Sting is still going every now and then at 64. Taker recently retired. Kurt Angle recently retired, even though they're a little younger. Tell us what it's like being in the ring, being in the business for 20, 30 plus years, and your thoughts of Flair and Sting still going at it later in life.
Well, I was just with Flair Friday night, and Flair will always be Flair. He tried to get me to go out with him after Terry's party, ended like 10 o'clock, and he wanted to go out, and I said, "Bro, I can't do that anymore. I just, I'm too old for that. You're a lot older than me." And he said, "Brother, this is the way I'm gonna die." And I said, "Okay,
Yes.
I mean, it's your life, it's your choice." But for the guys that work into their older years, Evan, I just hope and pray that they use every bit of caution that they can use, and they've got to remember that you're only a human being, and your body can only take so much punishment. That's the bottom line. I mean, I've had 22, 24 operations now, and all through the business, from 8 knee operations, shoulder operations, hand, 4 concussions. It's crazy what we do to entertain the fans. But it's like you were a fan when I met you, and I become very close with you. And I have a lot of fans that they're friends. They're not fans. They're just friends. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the sport myself. You can call me a mark. I'll always be a mark. I love the business. So, and I'm friends with everybody that's why I run the Cauliflower Alley Club. I'm the president and the CEO of the largest charity on earth for professional wrestling. And we're getting ready to have our reunion the 28th through the 30th in Vegas. And this is my ninth year of doing this, and it's amazing when you give back. You see guys that made millions of dollars of it, and all of a sudden they're about to lose their home, and because they didn't pay their taxes, or tax troubles is a big thing with some of the wrestlers. We don't mention people's names, but people, unless they tell us they want us to, like Kamala, Mr. Wonderful, Bobby the Brain Heenan. These guys all made millions of dollars, and here they're about to lose their homes. And Brickhouse Brown, I didn't even know. I knew of Brickhouse, but I get a call. I forget if it was Jerry Lawler. I think it was Jerry Lawler called me and said, "Brian, you know Brickhouse Brown?" And I said, "Well, I've heard of Brickhouse Brown." And he said, "Well, he's in a bad way right now, and he has cancer and he has no money." And so I said, "Give me his number. Give me his number." So I called him up, and all of a sudden, we hit it off so good. And I'm giving him money out of my pocket. That's how much I love Brickhouse. And, we're helping him with the CAC because he couldn't afford his chemo. And he had waited until he had no insurance. So he was just being treated with pain medication. So he had gone into stage 4 of prostate cancer. So he said he always dreamed of coming to the Cauliflower Alley Club. And we brought him to the Cauliflower Alley Club, and he tore it up. And we gave the first Courage Award to Brickhouse Brown, and I'll never forget. That was one of the best speeches. You can probably, I'm sure it's on social media. And when he got Terry Funk on the phone, it was just. It's a classic. It's something that you have to see. And he just cried and hugged me. And when we met, it was like we knew each other forever. Something about the business bonds people. And I love Brickhouse. I pray for his soul, all the time. And he was just an inspiration in his later years to so many. And we all go through some times we wish we wouldn't have in the business. And Brickhouse used to say, I wish I would have done that. I said, Brick, don't worry about it. It's done. It's over with. It's past, and he got to know the Lord. And, God forgives those who ask him, who confess their sins and ask him for forgiveness. And I know he's in heaven right now. He's in a better place, and we'll see each other again someday. But, you meet so many of these wonderful people through the organization of the Cauliflower Alley Club, and you can join for only $25. After September 1st, it's going to be $35 for a yearly membership, and the $350 lifetime memberships going up to $400. So I encourage your listeners to join the Cauliflower Alley Club. It's so good, and you get a lot for it. You get these wonderful copies of our newsletter. You can come to our reunion. You have to be a member to come to the reunion, and we'll be sold out. We'll be packed coming up.
That's great. And I know talk to us about with the Cauliflower Alley. I know when you and I met years ago, the great late Nick Bockwinkel was running it, and you was under him. Talk about the transition of Nick Bockwinkel, one of the greatest ever who done it in the business. And how was the transition to you now taking over after his passing away?
Well, that was during our 49th reunion, and Nick got sick, and they were looking for somebody to take the helm. And it was kind of between all the board members had narrowed it down to myself and Jim Ross. And then after a long talk, they said, well, let's go ask B.Brian Blair first. He's going to be at the Mobile, Alabama reunion. So a guy named Morgan Dollar, who was volunteering, because we're all volunteers at the Cauliflower Alley Club. Nobody makes a nickel. Matter of fact, it costs me. We all pay for our own airfare, for our own hotel, for everything. We pay for it ourselves. So it's really a labor of love. Not too many people pay for a job. And so Morgan asked me if I would like to be the president. And I said, well, what does that mean? Give me a job description. What is the president? And he said, well, you kind of be the face of the Cauliflower Alley Club. And I said, well, I don't mind that, Morgan, but, I've been a businessman for quite a long time. I mean, I started one clothes gym and
yep.
I had over 100 employees and sold them when they weren't for sale, which was a good thing. Trust me, when you sell something and it's not for sale, it's a good thing. And so they said, well, you can be the CEO. The president in the bylaws has the first opportunity to be the CEO. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I had already been honored by the CAC in 2002. I won the men's wrestling award in 2002. And then I went back again for Buddy Colt, who was honored with the men's wrestling award in, I believe, 2007. And it was just such a great group of people, very diverse, great crowd. And when they came and asked me in Mobile, I couldn't do anything but say yes, after that. So that's kind of the story. And Nick helped me a lot. Him and Carl Lauer, they both helped me tremendously.
It was great, and you was right there, right on time. You was in the right predicament, the right space, and you was getting prepared and didn't even realize it. You'll be the next one to take over for the CAC. Love about Vegas. So I've been to Vegas 3 times. I know you've been to Vegas 1,000 times. What is it about Vegas that you love, and what are some things that you dislike about Las Vegas?
Probably the same things I love or the same things that I dislike after a while. I love going there because of the wild atmosphere. It's like the Plaza Hotel is right across from Fremont Street. And I worked for Bill Watts and Leroy McGirt, both for a long time in Mid-South. And so we were in Louisiana and New Orleans often, and they had Bourbon Street there. Well, Fremont Street is like Bourbon Street on steroids. It's like 10 times more wild. And so, that's kind of like something that you want to go visit, but you don't want to really live there. And so things like that. And, it's a destination city. There's lots of great food and it's not expensive. And like for Cauliflower Alley members, you stay at a beautiful hotel for $46 and a night. And, it's just, it's sometimes it's warm, but you're not outside too often. So in the evening it cools off, and that's when people tend to go out once all the festivities of the CAC are over, because we have seminars, we have karaoke, we have so many fun things to do. We have wrestling matches. We have, a plethora of fun for everyone. And it's just a wonderful time. I'm really looking forward to it. It's our 57th reunion. It was established in 1965. So this is a actual 501c3. I've kind of led the group, and it's just everybody pulling together, 30 people pulling together to in one direction. And sometimes that's like herding cats, but it's a good thing. And we've built the club up so much. We have attorneys and accountants, and everything's, nobody could ever accuse anybody of stealing a nickel. I don't touch any money. We have a very honest treasurer, Rich Ingling, and he has to go to the accountant. Every dime has to match up. All the board members see everything, every dollar that's given out, every expense. So anybody can question anything anytime. We have all bylaws now, beautiful bylaws that are professionally done, and it's a great organization. We're, according to our accountant, we have to be in the top 2% of efficiencies of all charities, because there are very, very, very few charities where everybody is a volunteer and nobody gets compensated for anything. They don't even get paid to attend. I mean, you drive there, you don't get any gas money. You fly there, you don't get any airplane money. You stay there, you don't get hotel reimbursement. You eat, you're on your own. Well, with a reunion ticket, you get a reunion ticket for $150. It includes 2 awesome dinners and awards nights, but I don't know if you could live on just 2 meals during 2 days. But you go all over. They've got those $9.99 buffets, all lobster, steak. it's a lot of fun, Evan.
You mentioned karaoke. Does Brian Blair sing karaoke?
I do sometimes.
Sometimes, okay.
Yeah, sometimes. I've got to be in the mood,
Got to be in the mood, okay.
Yeah, got to be in the mood, and I will. So, KoKo is challenging me to.
Oh, KoKo B, Ware, yeah.
Yeah, he's one of our honorees. Been a great friend of mine.
One of our good friends and friends of the show. He sung on our show before.
Oh, I love
your voice.
Him and I have been. Oh God, we've got so many Andre stories together. And if you get a chance, your listeners get a chance. I have a book called Truth Be Told, and there's some good KoKo stories, Andre stories in here. And this is a 5-star rated book on Amazon. And you can see that, I don't know if you can see on the cover here, we were a finalist in Dave Meltzer's yearly awards for self-published books. And I get, so many compliments from this book because it's kind of like it starts at, how I grew up and morphs into how I got into the wrestling business, and then it starts all the road stories, and that's where people just have to. I get so many emails and questions, and it's a lot of fun. And I was surprised how many people are tell me, God, I can't believe the way you grew up and the challenges that you had and the things you did. It's just to get to, before you even put a pair of trunks on. So
yeah, can't wait to read your book. And you mentioned Dave Meltzer. Got to ask you questions on that. Did you ever care? We know Uncle Dave has the 5-star ratings. Did you ever care if your matches with the Hart Foundation, with the other great tag team, Strike Force and others, did you care if you had a 5-star rating from Dave, or it never bothered you?
Well, I always appreciated. I mean, in 1984, I was the most underrated, and I remember I started subscribing to the dirt sheets when they first came out, and people would see them and they say, "Man, what are you doing reading that stuff? That's terrible, man. Don't be reading that stuff." And I'd say, "Hey, I want to see what other people are saying. You got to keep up with what's going on." And, pretty soon people would start wanting to borrow my, dirt sheets, we called them, my observer letter. And so I'd let a couple people read it, and I'd make sure I got it back. And they'd start subscribing to Dave's letter. I think it was like $45 for a year or $35 for a year back then. And, he gave me a lot of highly rated matches. And one of my highest rated compliments probably in my lifetime was we were in St. Louis. I was working with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, sold out crowd, and the people stood after 1 minute. They never sat down. And it's you can see the match on YouTube, and Vince was announcing. He was at ringside then. And at the end of the show, when everything was over, I mean, we knew we rocked the house. But Chief Jay Strongbow comes up and he says, "Hey, Triple B." He says, "Hey," he always called me Triple B or BBBB. And we always called Mr. Wonderful Oscar. He said, and of course, Chief had a nickname for everybody. Vince was senior, Vince Jr. He says, "Oh, BBBB, Caesar wants to see you and Oscar in his office," which was, makeshift office, of course. It's at the Kilo Auditorium. So I'm thinking to myself, what did I do wrong? I said, "What did I do wrong, Chief?" He says, "He wants to see you in his office." So Paul and I kind of get there at the same time, and we're looking at each other. We knock on the door. Vince jerks the door open, and he looks at us, and he just reaches on, and he's like a germaphobe usually, and he just grabs us and gives us the biggest hug, and he goes, "Gentlemen, that was the greatest match I've ever seen in my life." I said, ever in your life? He goes, I swear to God, that was the greatest match I've ever seen in my life. That was amazing. You know, he gave us a bonus. He was just so happy, and that's so unlike Vince. I mean, it was an incredible, you know, just a compliment beyond compliments to have your boss, you know, who doesn't hug people, who's a germaphobe, to come grab your sweaty bodies and hug you and tell you that he just watched the best match he's ever seen. So,
Yeah. Now, you mentioned about, you know, in the past you've worked for senior and junior. Let us know the differences of working for senior and also working for Vince Jr.
well, Senior, you know, everybody really loved and respected Senior. He was a super straight shooter. Whatever he told you was solid gold. You know, he would go out of his way to keep his word. I'll never forget when we were in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and there was a line, and Senior would get in the back of the line. He wouldn't cut in the line if he had to pee, you know, so we're all waiting to pee in this line. And so Terry Holster's talking to Senior, and I'm kind of in the conversation, doing more listening as I usually do. So I'm listening, kind of saying a couple of things, but Senior goes into the restroom line. It's his turn, so he goes in there and pees. Now Terry goes in there to pee, and he turns around and he goes, Brian, look. I said, what? Look. And I look, and the whole toilet is just filled full of blood. I mean, it's pure red. And we knew something was wrong because that, you know, you just don't pee blood. So after a while, we found out that Mr. McMahon had prostate cancer. You know, I remember him talking to Junior about, you know, how he could own the whole wrestling industry with cable television. Junior would wheel him around in the wheelchair towards the end, but Vince Senior was so kind and so good-hearted and so honest that he would never do that. He would go to the NWA meetings, also in Vegas. I've got some of the notes actually from them, and he would attend. Everybody would attend, determine who was going to be the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. A lot of different things, and you know how often the champion would be shared, and who got him so many bookings, and so. And were they going to have a WWF NWA match? We're going to have an AWA versus NWA championship match. So they did all their business there. And so Vince Sr. was very loyal, whereas Vince Jr. is all about the bottom line. He doesn't care whose toes he steps on, although, I mean, he's always been good to me. I gave my notice. He never fired me. I gave my notice in Salisbury, Maryland, because we just got done working 67 days straight, and I was tired. I needed a break, and he didn't want to give me any time off. And then they had promised us the belts 3 times. I mean, we won the belt. We were supposed to win the belts right after we won the Jack Tunney tournament in Canada. You know, they gave us big trophies and made a big deal out of it. Then the first Survivor Series, we win the first Survivor Series, and they were going to give us the belts then. And, you know, still not giving us the belts. And I'm telling you, I mean, we were the hottest tag team on the planet. At that time, we were the absolute hottest tag team on the planet. They could have sold so many Killer Bee masks. Can you imagine how many Killer Bee masks they could have sold? And there was always an excuse. Oh, there's more money in the chase. Well, you know, I know there was politics on the other end. Dynamite at one time didn't want to drop the belts for some reason. And Bret Hart was always, yeah, man, we need to drop the belts to the Bees. You know, it's time. And one thing led to another. And I remember Vince came out with this T-shirt, this Killer Bee T-shirt. And I really didn't know what it was, but Vince was excited. So I was excited. And, you know, that's your boss. He's excited. So you be excited. Just a hint for some of you guys. If your boss shows you something and he likes it, you better like it too. And so Jimmy goes, what the hell is that? And I went, oh, God. I'm trying to, God, Jim, why did you say that? And little things like that would just, you know, I didn't know that Jimmy had sued Vince before we even became a tag team, and he won. He beat Vince because Greg signed the contract Jimmy's name in front of Vince for some action figures. And so Jimmy sued and he won. George Scott who was our booker at the time, they got into a big, huge feud in Charlotte, in the Carolinas territory. And he got fired, and lo and behold, George Scott's a booker. So, there were some things that kind of set us back, and it just wasn't meant to be. We had to go to Herb Abrams, as you mentioned. We worked for Herb Abrams, so we went to the Universal Wrestling Federation and became their world's tag team champions. Okay.
You mentioned about Herb Abrams. You guys had to go to UWF to win the tag straps.
Yeah, we had to go to UWF to win the straps, and so if Herb wouldn't have been so, his whole deal was cocaine and hookers, and that didn't mix with business.
No. Now you mentioned this jumping Jim Brunzell, who I remember, who doesn't get a lot of credit, as you don't at times. We all know that they talk about how Vince had beat the government twice, and we know how Jesse Ventura is one of the few that defeated Vince in court. Jim Brunzell now was one of the few with Jesse that actually beat Vince in court as well. Just imagine you on TV with the mask, without the mask, the killer bees and the jackets and the black and the yellow and the action figures, and you have no idea that your partner and your brother sees the boss.
I had no idea. And then to top it off, Evan, you just mentioned Jesse, and I get along great with Jesse, but Jesse came up to Jimmy and I, and he said, guys, we need to start a union. And I said, and Brunzell goes, that's a great idea. I said, well, wait a minute, guys, wait a minute. I said, have you talked to any of the other guys yet? Well, I'm getting ready to. I'm talking to you guys first. And I said, if you get Hogan, Macho, you get all the top guys, I said, then you come back to me and you can count me in. I said, but, I'm not going to commit right now until you get others to commit, because they'll just, replace us unless you've got the top guy, all of the top guys. He'll just run one town rather than three towns, and he'll keep going on before he coughs up the money it's going to cost him if we have a union. So they continued to go around and ask, and word got through to Junior. It's a telephone, telegraph, tele-wrestler, and so Vince heard that Jesse and Jimmy were starting a union, and oh man. I mean, Vince Jr. was so hot. He was, just flames were coming out of his nostrils. And he came up, he said, Bieber, were you in on that? I said, no, sir. I said, they asked me. I said, I was very honest with them. I said, they asked me if I wanted to be part of the union. I said, if all the other guys agree to be a part of it, then I would. But I said, I'm a no guy for right now. He said, all right. So he went around asking other people, and finally Jesse and Jimmy get suspended and fined for 2 weeks.
Wow. And you mentioned, do you think that is one of the reasons why, talk about the Hall of Fame, you been in the Cauliflower Alley, which is really big, and you winning awards, and your Dan Gable, who a friend of the show, who I've had the honor to have on the show as well, you winning awards and winning different things and the different trophies.
I'm in the Hall of Fame there too.
You're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You have the WWE Hall of Fame. Killer Bees aren't in there. Demolition is not in there. We can name some others. Strike Force is not in there.
No.
These are the great tag teams of the 80s that I grew up in as a kid, that you went against. Tito Santana, Rick Martel, Before the Model, yourself, Jumpin' Jim, Barry Dorso, who I grew up seeing him as a Russian first, and then, Demolition, and Bill Eadie. You're not in the Hall of Fame. So do you think, with the background of Jim and him suing Vince and beating him and the union, do you think that's the hindrance of why you guys aren't in?
I think it's a culmination of all the things that we've talked about, Evan. I think it's just all culminated. And, even when Pat Patterson came in to assist uh, George Scott with the booking, I always got along fantastic with Pat.
Great guy.
He was a really good guy. He used to tease me a lot when I was younger, but he was just all tease, no harm. Just a good guy. And um, he'd get in spats with Jimmy sometimes and pee in contests that were totally unnecessary. And yeah, you mentioned some great guys that aren't in their Hall of Fame, but I look at their Hall of Fame sometimes, and don't get me wrong, I would love to be in the WWE Hall of Fame, and I think we're very well. I mean, we were there for over 4 years just as a tag team, and I was there for 3 years before that as a single match, two and a half years, and so I've given about 7 years of my life to the WWE, and I've been an elected county commissioner county-wide in Hillsborough County, 1.5 people. That's larger than 11 other states. I've had a multi-million-dollar business that I started from scratch, and run the largest charity. I mean, I've got a lot of accomplishments that I've done when there's people with far less accomplishments
Yes.
that are in the Hall of Fame. So, maybe it'll happen someday, and I hope it does. But if it doesn't, I'm grateful just to have the friends I have, family I have, the people I know, to be able to have done what I've done. I mean, I know how many people that we have entertained all around the world, and we had a tremendous run on the independent circuit right after Jimmy left WWE in 1991. I mean, I even went on my own, like places like Russia with the Samoans. We've been all over the place: Singapore, Malaysia, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, Italy, Australia, just all over the world. And I always, even when I wasn't working for Vince, I still went to work for New Japan Pro Wrestling, who I worked for since 1981. Vince McMahon Sr. got me booked there, and they liked me, and I always had a job there whenever I wanted it.
That's amazing. And you mentioned about working all over. You talk about working with Vince Sr., working with Vince Jr., the notorious Herb Abrams, dealing with cocaine and hookers and how crazy that is. You also worked in New Japan with Inoki, with Fujinami. You also worked with, talk about Fritz von Erich and talk about Vern Gagne, some of the other legendary promoters that you worked with.
Well, I mean, I lived with David Von Erich for a year and a half. Again, you can read it in my book, Truth Be Told. I know it's getting late. I remember. Let me see. Let me look up here. I got here's a little ticket. I don't know if you can see this on your screen or not. It's
Yes.
Inoki. I mean, this was one of my first tours, and yeah, in Japan, and Big John Studd, Paul Orndorff. We had probably the first riot in modern day New Japan Pro Wrestling in Hiroshima, Japan, and that's why I tore two of these tendons, trying to hold Keto back. It was Mr. Wonderful and Big John Studd and Keto again, Fujinami and Keto and Inoki. And I had Keto in the corner, and those guys were in the other corner. And all of a sudden, people started hitting our feet and trying to grab Keto's leg to pull him away from me. And they were hitting my legs, and I was stomping their hands. And he tried to pull away from me, and I didn't want him to pull away from me because I like that heat. And, I'm not used to being a heel. So I was getting really, kind of digging on it. And, they were really getting riled up, which is hard to do in Japan. So Keto jumped, and his legs, unfortunately, were a lot stronger than my two middle tendons. So, they had to take two of my tendons and sew them to this pinky tendon so that I could move my hands. But I just wrapped it up for the last 10 days of the tour and kept working. But, there's so many great stories, and this is over a 400-page book, and I had over 1,000 pages of notes, and we had to. Ian Douglas, who's a tremendous co-author, he did Steve Kern's book recently. He's done a lot of tremendous books. He's doing Mike Rotundo's book now. He did. You mentioned his name a minute ago. The hooker.
Herb Abrams.
The good shooter.
Dan Gable.
No, not Dan Gable. The guy that wrestled Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle.
He's done. Bugsy McGraw. The earlier shooter, Dan Severin.
Yes.
He's
friend of the show.
Co-written all their books. I mean, he's Hornswoggle. He's a tremendous author. Ian Douglas.
I tell you what about a good buddy Dan who literally could kill you with a snap of a finger, but the nicest guy. Reminds me of Ned Flanders from you talked to him as I have. Ned Flanders from The Simpsons is happy-go-lucky. He had his little mustache. He has like the little mustache. And he just saw him at a convention with Mr. Hughes. He put it right on my face. This is a joke. Great guy. Some of the people that's tough, like yourself, and some of the nicer guys are some of the toughest. But definitely great books. I can't read your book soon. And everyone seemed to come out with books, but I do know with your book and others, you could tell the passion that's in it and how serious it is. And you could tell reading a book that you put your heart and soul in it. It's not just, I'm just writing a book to get, for a cash cow, to get some money or just to get more notoriety. You could tell that you put so much effort in all of the history that you have. Not only, shout out to Jim Brunzell. I know it's getting late, but I just wanted to, if you can, Brian, give us your best WWF match, another 2 favorite matches that you had, in lasting words of encouragement before we end this interview.
Probably my 2 favorite matches as I end here is the match that Mr. Wonderful and I had with Vince McMahon, and the tag team match that Jim Brunzell and I had for Saturday night main event with the Hart Foundation, when we used the masks for the first time and did mass confusion. The people went absolutely crazy, and we were off to the races. Those were 2 great memorable matches that I'll never forget. And closing words, I love you, Evan. I appreciate you having me on your show. I appreciate your audience listening and taking the time. And grab Truth Be Told if you get a chance. And I promise you, if you don't like the book, I'll give you double your money back. And you heard that. You can come back and tape this, record it, whatever. I'd be more than happy to give you double your money back, because it's just, you're going to like it. And finally, just be good to each other. We're living in tough times right now, and it's there's people pitting us against each other for their own reasons. And believe me, I've been a politician. I understand politics very, very much. And we're living in a world where people with a lot of money want to dominate us, and they want to own us. And we just have to stand up to that. So do your homework. Make sure you get out and vote, and just keep loving each other. And always keep the faith.
Thank you much, Brian. Love you too, brother. Everybody, you're listening. You've heard it here first. The great Brian Blair, Triple B. This man has a book, Truth Be Told, B-E-E, Be Told. You can find that online. Definitely read his book. You won't have to worry about giving double your money to me or anyone else, because they definitely will love it. This man has wrestled all over the world. This man has wrestled with Inoki, with Fujinami. He wrestled and worked with Vince Sr., Vince Jr., Herb Abrams, who survived the WWF. This man has also worked with the great late Fritz Von Erich, Vern Gagne, stayed at David Von Erich's house. The great Hulkster saved his life with his spine. He helped save Hulk's life, being there to help him. He declined an invitation to Nate with the Nature Boy. He said no. Still strong, still smiling, gained muscle mass, muscle density, No matter what, you can't hold this man down. Still here, still smiling. Owner of the Cauliflower Alley, 57 years. Congratulations, brother. Hope to see you again soon. And talk to you later on. This is Under the Mat Radio signing off with B.Brian Blair, August the 15th, 2018. 2023. I'm sorry, I don't know where 18 came from.